How's it going, everybody? It's Sam and Jay here, welcoming you back to the Morbid Veil. Today we're going to be reviewing the latest addition to the Scream franchise, Scream 6.
Which had so much potential, but fell far from our expectations.
That being said, there will be many spoilers ahead. Now we'll be rating this movie with 7 key factors.
Factor 1. How engaging was the opening sequence?
Factor 2. How much gore was present throughout the film, and were they anatomically correct in their detail?
Factor 3. How interesting were the characters?
Factor 4. How long did it take for the story to develop?
Factor 5. Was the story compelling?
Factor 6. Was the movie repetitive? Did it reuse too much from the previous films?
And Factor 7. Was the ending any good?
Each factor is ranked out of 10, 10 equaling 1 full point. All of this will be taken into account as we review the horror film that is Scream 6.
Guys?
The opening scene was unique, as it didn't start with a blonde girl in her house getting ready to watch a scary movie all alone. Instead, it started off with a blonde girl in a yellow dress waiting for her date to arrive at the bar. Her date calls her, explaining that he's only been in New York for a few months and he's not sure of where he is. As he explains that he's walking down the street to meet her, he asks her questions about her profession. She explains that she is in fact a film professor at the university, teaching her class about slasher films. Her date seems interested in her profession, and fans will automatically tell that her date is in fact the killer. They try to throw us off with the date mentioning that he's more of a fan of rom-coms, but this makes him all the more obvious. He seems to be lost again and asks what color the building is. The professor states that it's a red building, but she's not too sure. Still on the phone, she heads outside to take a look at the building, confirming that it is in fact red. Her date asks if there is an alley nearby, and she says yes. The professor heads to the alley entrance, but doesn't see him even though he says he's walking down. He asks her to wave, and she does so, but she cannot see him. He says someone is there, but they're not waving back, that they're just standing still. He then exclaims that the person is coming at him with a knife. The professor enters deeper into the alley, believing her date is in danger. At this point, her date's voice changes to that of the iconic Ghostface, mocking her for being a teacher of horror films, yet still entering a dark alley alone. A group of college kids start screaming from one end of the alley, distracting the professor, giving the killer the perfect opportunity to rush from the shadows and stab the professor in the chest repeatedly. Before his final stab, he says, "Now I see something red," referring to the red bar they were supposed to meet at. But instead of leaving us with that, the writers move on to the next scene, where the killer removes his mask and we see exactly who it is. A college student named Jason. Jason casually leaves the alley and proceeds to his apartment, where it's revealed that he and his roommate Greg were plotting to kill the Carpenter sisters and finish the snuff film the killers Richie and Amber were trying to make in Scream 5. Jason then receives a call from Greg, and Jason apologizes for killing the professor. He explains that he just needed to see what killing felt like. Greg then begins to speak with a Ghostface voice, which immediately makes Jason feel uncomfortable. Greg then plays the game hot or cold until Jason reaches the refrigerator. He pulls open the door, only to find Greg's bloody, dismembered body stuffed into the fridge. The real killer then appears behind Jason and begins to stab him until Jason slumps down onto the floor. His dying words were, "We have to finish the movie," to which Ghostface replies, "Who gives a fuck about the movies," before making the final cut. The writers did a fantastic job with this opening. They start off with a perfect Ghostface intro, then quickly ruin it by revealing the killer's face. They then kill Jason and his partner with another Ghostface, who has no interest in finishing the snuff film that Richie and Amber were making in the previous film. The overall atmosphere, level of gore, and direction the film started taking with this opening was a true masterpiece that Wes Craven would be incredibly proud of. It left the audience completely speechless and starving for more.
The movie was filled to the brim with blood and gore, worthy of any serial killer's wet dream. That being said, there were a few anatomical mistakes that weakened the movie. The four most important moments were in the beginning and the end of the film. We already mentioned the death of the film professor at the start of the movie, and how she was repeatedly stabbed in the chest by Jason. While it was entertaining, the professor dies screaming, after already suffering several fatal wounds to the chest. As some of you may know, when you stab someone through the chest, especially centering around the sternum, two major organs will be severely damaged. Firstly are the lungs. After a couple stabs to the chest, the professor would have been unable to scream. Her lungs would have been filling with blood, and she'd be lucky to get a single whisper for help. The second organ would be the heart, located right behind and to the left of the sternum. One hit there, and she'd enter a state of shock, gasping, and her body convulsing as it struggles to properly pump blood. The second most notable death, that had so much gore, but lacked any realistic qualities, was the death of Annika. While her death seemed to be on the verge of realistic, with Ghostface literally gutting her like a fish, she remained conscious and even attempted to crawl across a ladder with a gaping hole in her abdomen. In real life, she would have lost consciousness within minutes and died of blood loss. But that could have been overlooked as she attempted to crawl across a ladder with some consciousness. While crawling with her hands and knees, and nothing covering the wound in her stomach, Annika's guts would have plopped out onto the ground below, especially with Ghostface bouncing the ladder up and down to make her fall. The third attack did not cause death, but at the very least should have caused paralysis. In the last 20 minutes or so of the movie, Tara is stabbed in the spine by Ghostface. This was a truly shocking moment, and I expected to see her collapse, struggling to breathe, and unable to move. However, she screams, runs away, and nothing truly seems to happen. Let's start off with the initial stab. Tara screams. When you're stabbed in the back, you don't scream, especially when the knife goes in all the way to the hilt. Secondly, the one I know very well, when the spinal cord is damaged. The idea of you walking anywhere seems remote. But apparently, Tara isn't a soft back like dear Miss Gordon, but rather a hard back. And finally, Tara's attack on Ethan. Another spoiler, Ethan is one of the killers. He stabs her, and she stabs him, but she stabs him straight through the mouth. She even goes so far as to give the blade a hard twist. The standard length of a hunting knife like the one used by Ghostface is 6 inches in length, and once again, in this scene the knife goes all the way to the hilt before hitting his teeth. Going straight through would cause severe trauma to the muscles, arteries, and once again, the spine. With that hard twist of the blade, Ethan's spine should have been severed. If not instant death, bleeding out. If somehow he didn't bleed out, then he'd be paralyzed. But nope, he gets right back up at the end of the movie to give us that one final scare. I was rolling my eyes more than anything when I saw he was back up. The gore was wonderful, but the lack of realistic anatomy was... it just damaged the whole movie.
Let's start with the Carpenter sisters. Sam's hallucinations of her father, Billy Loomis, are all but gone, but rest assured he makes an appearance here and there, trying to push her to be like him, which we do get a little glimpse of at the end of the movie when she dons the Ghostface costume. She's very protective of her sister Tara, who doesn't seem to be as traumatized as Sam about the events of the previous film. The film doesn't try to show too much of Sam's struggle, portraying her as a strong woman who can overcome the trauma inflicted by Richie and Amber. For the most part, it seems like bad writing, but we get a few hints that the trauma has made her slightly numb to the whole situation of being hunted by a killer. We see a few brief moments where she begins to act like a true psychopath, completely devoid of any emotion. For the majority of the film, she seems more like a filler character, and then again the same could be said about the rest of the cast. In Scream 6, Tara has tried to become her own person, and though she doesn't admit it, she does struggle with the events of Scream 5. This is seen in the beginning of the film when she's at a frat party where she's willing to let a boy, much bigger than her, take her to his room to get a bottle of Fireball. While she knows he's after only one thing, she's prepared to go with him, even after taking a moment to contemplate his offer of going to his room. One might determine that she has a desire to have something bad happen to her again. Perhaps allowing something bad to happen to her would give her some sort of psychological strength, letting it happen rather than having it happen. Next, we have Chad and Mindy, the niece and nephew of Randy Meeks, the movie nerd who met his demise in the second film. The two characters haven't changed much since Scream 5, except for Chad, who doesn't seem to be as much of a knucklehead. Both he and Tara are attracted to one another, but their relationship doesn't seem to have any solid foundation other than, I like you, and you like me, so let's kiss. In my honest opinion, they should have spent more time in the movie building up their romance, rather than jumping into it like they did. Sure, they didn't get their first kiss until the end of the movie, but it still seemed rushed. We could continue going through the rest of the cast, but I think I already summed it up earlier with the majority of the cast seeming more like filler characters who were easily forgettable.
Whoever smells
The story developed rather quickly, from the murder of Jason and Greg to the killer leaving the masks of previous killers at the scenes of his crimes. We're left in suspense, wondering what exactly the killer is counting down to. How many killers are there? Are there more children of Billy Loomis? Did they build the shrine? The quick development and the small details made any fan wonder about the possibilities of the movie's conclusion.
The story had a good foundation from the start. Though many of the characters seemed to lack any true substance, the story itself was quite interesting for the most part. We have a killer who has something against Sam Carpenter and decides to kill everyone associated with her and the death of Richie and Amber from Scream 5. The friends eventually are led to a Ghostface shrine which supposedly belonged to Jason and Greg. This leads everyone to believe that the killer who is after them is also obsessed with Ghostface, and that he's seeking to become a better killer by killing the daughter of Billy Loomis, or that he's trying to make her snap so that she can become the leader of what many fans speculated would be a Ghostface cult. Now, amidst all the thriller, drama, and horror, fans are forced to watch unnecessary scenes of humor that are there to fill some time before the next important scene. Some humor is good, but they had too much in it that it felt more like a B movie than a professional movie from Hollywood. Truth be told, aside from the friends constantly looking over their shoulder, finding a Ghostface shrine which alludes to a Ghostface cult, the story lacks in the imagination department, especially at the end when the killers and their motives are finally revealed.
To explain whether or not the movie was repetitive, let's recap on the motives of every killer from the previous 5 films. If you already know their motives and don't wish to hear them again, then please skip to the time on the screen now. Scream's killers, Billy and Stu, were unique in the sense that Billy wanted revenge for what Maureen Prescott did to his family, and Stu went along with the killings because Billy was peer pressuring him into it. Scream 2 features another duo, with Nancy Loomis and Mickey Altieri. Mickey wanted to be caught and blamed the entire killings on horror movies and the effects of cinema violence on society. As for Nancy Loomis, she just wanted to kill Sidney for murdering her beloved son. In Nancy's own words, just good old-fashioned revenge. Scream 3, we are introduced to Roman Bridger, who reveals that he orchestrated the murder of Maureen Prescott by revealing why Billy's mother, Nancy, left their family. He then wanted to frame his half-sister, Sydney, for all of the murders, branding her a psychopath, with him being the only survivor. His reason for all of this? Because he believed that everything Sydney had should have been his. Yep, just more greed and revenge. Scream 4, we get something a little different. Jill Roberts and Charlie Walker are secretly boyfriend and girlfriend. Sort of. Charlie had a crush on Kirby, a nerdy horror fan who also happened to be smoking hot. Too hot for him to even have a chance. It's not until the end of the movie that Kirby finally develops feelings for him. But he's already a killer, so that ship had sailed. He was now infatuated with Jill, and believed that they were killers in love. As a bonus, he wanted to remake the original Stab movie by outdoing it. Jill, on the other hand, was sick of her cousin Sydney, always getting the spotlight. She wanted to be the sole survivor, and even killed poor Charlie to realize that dream. She was a narcissistic sociopath who wanted to be famous for being the victim. Scream 5, we have two psychopaths who wanted to make a snuff film and keep the Stab franchise alive. Amber moved into the Stu Macher house and becomes so obsessed with the murders that she decides to carry on his legacy. She meets Richie online, who wants to make a snuff film, and the two become what Charlie wanted with Jill. Two killers in love. And now for Scream 6. While 1, 4, and 5 were indeed unique in their killers and motives, both 2 and 3 kept with the whole revenge plot. Billy wanted revenge, and that was an okay motive for the first movie. But then, he died, and in the second movie, his mother wanted revenge for that. And then the third movie is once again about revenge, with Roman believing that everything Sydney got from their mother should have been his. And now we're back to revenge. The kills were pretty new, especially with that one shotgun scene. But the killer's motives ruined the story, because we've already seen it 3 times before.
And finally, we come to the ending of Scream 6. Once again, spoiler alert. The movie was great up until this point, when the killers were finally revealed. The first killer we see unmasked is Detective Wayne Bailey, then his son Ethan, and finally his daughter Quinn, who we believed was killed earlier on. We still weren't sure as what the motives were, but it's quickly revealed to us. Though the children seemed to be intrigued with some of the previous killers, the whole family's only goal was to kill Sam Carpenter because she butchered Richie, the older brother of Quinn and Ethan, and the first son of the detective. The Ghostface shrine was built by Detective Bailey for his son Richie, who was obsessed with it. The detective went so far as to steal evidence from the previous Ghostface murders to add to his son's collection. While the twist would have been great for a second Scream movie, or for a completely different horror film, it was just a copy and paste motive of a parent's love and obsession for their child. Instead of Detective Bailey hunting down and killing Samantha Carpenter on his own, he convinced his 2 last children to help him. They believed that she was a real killer and wanted Samantha to put on her father's costume so they could kill her in it. But the crappiness of this ending doesn't just stop with their copy and paste motive of revenge and a frame job. After Tara supposedly kills Ethan and Sam shoots Quinn through the head, Sam and Detective Bailey run at each other, screaming, while he's still holding a loaded gun, and they fall off the balcony. He gets knocked out. Meanwhile, Sam finally puts on her father's costume, and when he wakes up, he gets a call from Ghostface. Samantha taunts him a little before finally stabbing him multiple times. You can see that she loves it, but Tara stops her from killing the detective. For a moment. Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, Wednesday Addams, smiles and silently insists that her sister killed the detective. which Samantha does by stabbing him through the eye. Sam removes her father's costume, and at this point it's revealed that Ethan isn't dead. He's shot, the girls live, Chad is still alive, Kirby's going to make it, and Sam is tempted to keep her father's mask before Tara calls out to her and she drops it on the ground. As stated earlier, Tara should have died from the stab to the back, and Sam is already seeing her deceased serial killer father. Naturally, we assumed that there might be an end credit scene where it's revealed that Tara did die, and Sam killed the detective and is on the run, or that she is in a mental asylum for the criminally insane. Anything leading to the possibility of a Scream 7, or even no end credit scene would have been acceptable. Rather, fans who waited for an end credit scene are mocked, with Mindy Meeks appearing for a second to simply say that every movie doesn't need an end credit scene, or something to that effect. As a fan of the slasher films, we were expecting either something worthy of an end credit scene or nothing at all. But knowing that some fans are going to watch until the end and make a scene specifically to mock them for being loyal to the franchise is just a dick move. Make a good end credit scene or don't make one at all.
Yes, today. It's an honor. Scream 6 had a lot of potential and gave us hope that we'd get to see something completely new and revolutionary to the franchise. But the lack of character depth and development, the awful story ending, the lack of realistic anatomy, and the tactless response to Scream fans at the end damaged the movie greatly. We only give it a 3.8 out of 7. If they decide to make a Scream 7, we might decide to watch it. But after how disappointing 6 was, we'd probably just wait for it to come to Redbox for $3.
We hope you enjoyed our thorough review of Scream 6. If you're a huge Ghostface fan like us, then feel free to check out our Fallout 4 slasher build, The Faceless. Before you go, we have an important announcement. We went through all of our comments for the Ghostface box and have made our choice.
To our dear subscriber, who posted the greatest Ghostface comment ever, we return your message.
Yo,
Hello, Shorty. What are you doing?
nothing. Sitting here watching the game, smoking some bud.
Are you all alone?
What's up? What's up?
What the? Who's that?
Yo, pick up the phone. What's up?
What's up?
Yo, Duque, pick up the phone. Yo.
What's up?
What you doing, son?
Nothing. Just chilling. Killing.
True.
Have a great rest of your week, everybody, and we'll see you all here next time on the Morbid Veil.